Hello and welcome everybody to our second live event for the 2023 Firefighter Recruit testing process.
Glad to be back, right, Mike?
Yes, and while we're on it, again, my name is Mike Guardado, working fire personnel, and then we have Nicole Fazio with City Human Resources.
Hello again.
So just a little refresher. First off, applications have closed, right? So we are really catering to our candidates that have filled out their application. They're waiting for our response. We're working on that now.
Yeah, we've received almost 900, Mike.
Almost 900.
So really happy about that turnout. Congratulations on taking the first step on the application for our process and being part of Mesa Fire.
Yeah. So again, we take pride in being very transparent, and actually, you know, I get a lot of calls to the recruitment office, and it's like, what do I got to do to be a firefighter? What's the steps to the process? What's it like? And so we decided to put on these events, right? So it's our second year doing it. I remember when I went down and I was interested in being a firefighter, I knocked on the chief's door. I'm like, I need to talk to the chief about becoming a firefighter. And I was referred to somebody like me. So basically what we're trying to do is improve upon that process, and you as candidates, you know what to expect through the process and that you're fully informed. And that's what we're doing today. So as we get started, just a couple things. We have our fire personnel team in the background. They're here to answer questions. So this is interactive. If you have questions, put it in the chat box, and we'll get an answer back to you.
Yeah, very excited. Keep them coming in there. You know, questions can benefit others. And then this is going to be recorded again, just like our event that we had a couple weeks ago. So if you're not able to watch live tonight, it will be posted tomorrow on the recruitment page.
Yes.
As well. And so you can rewatch it. We're going to cover a lot of information. We also still have the link there to the event we had a couple weeks ago, so you can rewatch that as well. That one also had the great information on more about the job that Mike covered, the department, the city of Mesa, some of the qualifications. So really two great opportunities to take advantage and rewatch what you need to.
Oh, okay. So with that, we'll get started with what we have here. Okay, so again, the 2023 recruitment process here, this is going to be a list for about a 1-year period. Okay, we're going to staff 2 academies from this list, and then we're looking at about 50 positions at least. So
yeah, at least very promising. For
yes,
the next year.
So a lot of opportunity for you. We're still a growing department, and we need you. So let's get going. So our testing process, what is it? First off, we're going to start off with the written exam. We'll be talking a little bit about that later. We have an interview we'll be discussing, and then the intern orientation. So those are going to be the 3 topics for tonight. Getting into our process. So you see some dates there. I won't cover it. You know that we have the written, the interview, and also the intern. But into the process, conditional offers will be coming out in November. So you can always refer back to this presentation as you move through, and you're like, when am I going to hear something back? That's when it'll be. And then the Fire Recruit Academy is going to be for January. Again, there's 2 academies that are going to be hired from this list. If you need to know timelines that we actually talked about our last process, they can reference that. But for the August Academy, that has not been determined yet as far as the cutoffs and the deadlines for minimum requirements. So that'll be at a later date and time.
But it's a great idea to go ahead and rewatch that, because we did touch on the last one. You know, if you're trying to get all your qualifications, your EMT, your CPAT, all those things we touched on for the January Academy, that's great. But if you're not able to get 1 or more of them by that time, we don't want you to be discouraged. There is still time, because August 2024, that's more than a year away. Right. And so there's more time that you can still work through that over the winter and the early spring and potentially be able to make that. So again, 1-year list. The key is that first you've applied. So first step, and then we're going to talk about these next steps. So the written test, the big thing to get on the eligible list for that next year. And so going through those components and just taking it steady, right?
Right. Okay.
All right.
So our written exam. So what is the written exam all about? First off, it's being hosted by the National Testing Network.
And that's our second year with them.
Second year with them. We actually have a representative from National Testing Network that's going to be joining us a little later.
Yes.
So if you have any questions specific to National Testing Network, we'll have somebody here live to answer those.
Coming through in the chat. She's going to do a short demonstration if you're not familiar with their site and their testing process, but definitely a good opportunity for those questions.
Okay, so there's when it comes to the virtual written, there's 2 parts. One is the fire team. The fire team is proctored. So that's the one you're going to have to schedule, right? And make sure that you know, all the requirements are being met. We won't get into that, but that's the first part, the fire team. And then also the public safety assessment, PSSA Part 1. That's another component, and we'll be talking about these individually a little later in the presentation, but you have to take both these tests, okay? There's another one, just to be familiar with, it's a PSSA Part 2, and that is not required by us. So it's just the fire teams and the PSSA Part 1. Those two need to be done. Now, you can still take the PSSA Part 2. We don't require it, but we know a lot of you are testing with multiple agencies.
Use NTN.
We're paying for the cost. So, I mean, that might be something that you would want to take advantage of.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about the importance of a few times tonight about scheduling early, planning ahead, because when you mentioned that fire team being a proctored test, while it is online, and that's great, and then you have the opportunity to do it from home or at an NTN testing center, because it's proctored, there's only so many slots, right? And so again, first come, first serve, planning ahead to make sure that you can pick a time and place that's convenient for you.
Right. And if you log in there and there's a lot of demand for spots at that time, don't be discouraged if you don't see any availability, because they add spots as demand increases. So you'd constantly be checking back in. But like Nicole, we're going to say this a lot through this presentation. It's all about scheduling early so you have opportunity, right?
Right. Unpredictable is life, right? And so technical problems, life happens, don't want to wait till the last minute, and that'll be a kind of a theme throughout tonight.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the written exam, some more of the details as far as what to expect. Okay, so everyone, you should have gotten an email when you did your application that it was received, so you know that you've gotten that. And so what you're going to get from me next week, if you've met the qualifications for the position, again, they were very basic, as a reminder from 2 weeks ago, 18 years of age, high school diploma. Okay, and if you met those qualifications on or about July 6th, so next Thursday, that's when you're going to get the very detailed email from me explaining the written exam process. Okay, so very important email to take a look at in detail.
Yeah,
right?
and we talked about it. So I think it's an 8 pages document.
Yeah,
it's detailed.
The most concise person, but it is all for our candidates.
It
right?
is
For their benefit.
And like we're giving you a general overview tonight. We can't cover everything, and if anything comes up, you said that in the presentation, or you didn't say that in the presentation, we always refer back to that document. So that is something that you need to just take the time and read. Yes. Okay. In fact, I recommend to candidates, don't get your email, schedule it. You're taking the test and you overloaded yourself. Get that email, take the time and just digest that email first. Read through it. Know what to expect through the testing process. And so that's one thing kind of checking off your list that first.
Yeah, I mean, when we say, schedule things early and don't wait, we don't also mean run on there right that second, so you'll get your email. We're also going to be doing the text messaging this year. I think we briefly touched on that in that last session that we had. It's a new feature, just kind of reminding candidates to check your email. So if you're not in the habit of regularly doing that, hopefully the text messaging will prompt you, but you don't need to drop everything, right, and run to it. We want to make sure you're carefully reading it.
Right.
It's a lot of detailed information on the process.
Yeah. And it's really just meant for the candidate so they can be successful.
Exactly.
Right?
Not to trip anybody up.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll want to make sure you take your time to read mine first. It'll probably answer a lot of questions that you might have. And then the second email is going to be just a simple one from NTN itself. So very basic. It'll come from do not reply at NTN, and it will just have the link that's inviting you to do the testing process. Okay, so it is a link that's unique to you, so you can't share it with anyone. It's important that you follow the instructions, hopefully when you did your application, to use an email address that is unique to you, not share with your spouse or a friend. If you accidentally did that, it's not a problem. As I explained in that last session, it's very easy to update your contact information in your governmentjobs.com profile. So between now and next Thursday, just take the time to do that, log in and update your email if that might apply to you, because that email is what's going to be used for your NTN invitation. They have to line up and be unique.
Okay.
So making sure you keep an eye out for that.
All right.
All right.
I think we covered it already, but we're paying for the test.
Yeah, just like last year. So no out-of-pocket cost, whether you are taking the test new or transferring a score, which we'll talk about momentarily. Either way, no out-of-pocket cost.
Okay. All right.
All right. Testing window.
So the testing window. So it's July 6th through the July 7th through July 17th. And those are hard dates.
Yes.
So again, we're hosting these events so that you're fully informed. You can already start your preparation now. You know what to expect. So here's the thing, we talk about scheduling early again. Mm-hmm. Don't wait till the last minute because we run out of options. So we just want to put that on your radar. If you have taken the NTN test before, because there's a lot of departments across the country that actually use this platform, you can transfer your score. So that is an option to you. If you do decide with that option, it has to be within 1 year. Okay, so that kind of covers that. If let's say you've recently taken it and you've
maybe
taken
like a month or so ago.
yeah, if you've taken it within the last 3 months, that's your score. That's going to transfer over to Mesa.
They'll have to choose to do it. So it's
Uh-huh.
not automatic, but you have to transfer it, meaning you don't have the choice to retest.
Right. That's yeah. So you can't retest if it's within the 3 months. So
But 3 to 12 months is where you can do either or.
mhm.
Okay. So one of the questions I think that we get a lot, Mike, and people ask you, well, can I try both and maybe see which one is better? So we want to provide that clarification that unfortunately that's not possible. So 2 reasons why. NTN only takes the most recent one. So if you do choose to retest, then that one's going to supersede your previous one, say it was 6 months ago, because it's more recent. The other reason we'll talk a little bit more tonight about is because every department has their own scoring model. So what you got, maybe if you tested for Chandler a few months ago, may not be the same score weighted the same way for Mesa.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very important. But it's a question I remember we got last year.
Okay. So actually, we already talked about it's not automatic that you transfer your score. So it's important for you to know that.
Yes.
That's something you have to do
You have to
manually.
click the link from the email.
Mhm.
So don't think, oh, I already tested with NTN and it's just going to automatically go to Mesa Fire. No, you do have to take action to send that over to us.
Okay. All right. So we got that. So here's a common question that we get all the time. Can I retake the test and see that score and then compare it and see if I want to use that?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And because, like I mentioned, because each department weighs their scoring differently, that's not always possible.
Okay.
And so what you'll have to do is just kind of make that decision. Do you feel like you did good on the test? Is it something that you want to try and just take again? Have you maybe been, it's weighing on you? I mean, it's a personal decision, but it's not something that NTN is going to be able to tell you, you got this, and therefore that's what's going to be. And if you take it again, you can't go back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're trying to just do here is just kind of inform you of your options, that if it's within the 3 months, that's the score that's going to transfer.
Yeah.
Right. And every department weights things differently. But if you're outside those 3 months and you're within the year, you can take it.
Right.
Again,
And also
that's up
want
to
to
you.
stress not to be discouraged. If say you didn't advance in the process for another department, that doesn't necessarily mean that your score was bad.
Uh-huh.
They have different thresholds. They're hiring different numbers of people, the level of competitiveness, different times. And so don't overthink it as well.
Okay.
You want to make sure people keep positive, and this is, a new process for us.
Okay.
Okay.
So written exams or virtual testing. Why are we using this option? Basically, it's convenient for you. We have candidates from all over the country. We also have candidates that are in the military that are deployed. So again, as long as you meet the requirements for National Testing Network on what they need for the proctored exams, you can take it anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere with that online access or the NTN testing center. So it gives opportunities. If you say at home you don't have a private location or you don't have the webcam type of thing, it's not a problem. I believe Emma tonight will talk some more about that, about those locations. I think in Arizona there's at least 3, including one in the Phoenix area. So there's options, but the bottom line is with that testing window, it's more than the 1 day, right? Okay. In the past, that if you couldn't be there, then you were out of the process.
Right.
A lot more inclusive.
Okay. And then along with that email you're talking about, they're going to get from National Testing Network. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about the test today, but we can't go into detail. There are going to be some links there. They kind of give you some facts and stuff that you can do some research on your own with that invitation.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
All right, so just want to touch briefly on reasonable accommodations for parts of the testing process, including the written exam. So again, in that detailed email that I'm going to be sending next Thursday, it will include instructions if this applies to you. If you have a disability that may need an accommodation, it'll walk you through the form that you have to submit, the documentation, and the process for that. I do want to stress, because on the form it does say fax or mail it in the interest of time, because the testing window is only a week or so, that we need you to do the fax option. We don't want it to be lost in the mail either.
Right.
But it just simply takes too long, and we want to make sure we have enough time to get it, review, and determine, what options we might have if that applies to you. So we have that deadline of July 10th at 8 a.m. Again, you don't need to write these down. It will all be in the email, but those deadlines are there to give us time to be able to work through that process with you.
Okay, perfect. So I think we mentioned on the previous slide that, you could be taken anywhere as long as you meet the, requirements, but National Testing Network also has physical testing locations.
Exactly.
So you can also schedule and take those spots and just go down to a testing center. There's 3 within the state We have one here in Phoenix.
Yep, I believe in the Flagstaff area,
Mhm.
probably Tucson.
I think it was also Tucson. So yeah, you have options there. We just want to make you aware of that. But also with the reasonable accommodations, these are hard dates
Yes.
and times
Yes.
because they have to set that up and give you those accommodations if you meet those, parameters. So
Exactly. So just make sure you're mindful of all that. Again, another reason why we stress, be sure to take the time to read that email. It's just got a lot of important information. And as well as preference points, that's another question that we get often. We briefly touched on it in the last Facebook session. Those are applied to certain groups of people by Arizona statute, such as veterans, disabled persons, disabled veterans. And so if that applies to you, the information again will be in the same email. But just to highlight for here, some of the questions we get asked is, how do I get the points? When and where are they added? And so the answer is they're added to the first part of the testing process. So for ours, it would be this written exam. So it's not added to your interview or the intern orientation or anything else, but for the written. The second big takeaway is they're only added to your passing score. So they're not added if you don't pass to get you over the threshold. But if you do pass your base score, then if you qualify and submit the document, you would get those added.
Okay.
So again, similar deadline, the July 10th, again, for the same reason, like Mike said, we need time to review that documentation, make sure it's appropriate, that it's qualified and accounted for. And that's why it's July 10th, which is in the middle of that testing window to give us that time.
And did you talk about they'll be able to download the documents, but that's the only one, not?
Yeah, that's a great reminder. So I think Emma will show that as well in her demonstration tonight, where you go to actually upload your documentation in the NTN website for the preference points. It will allow you to upload anything. You could upload, your resume, your EMTs, things like that. We're not going to be considering any of that. So even though it looks like you can do that, we're only taking preference points. And we also go by the timestamp. So that July 10th at 8 a.m. is critical. If you submit it the 11th, because it's going to let you, we're not going to consider it then. So please make sure, we are serious with these deadlines.
Okay. And we understand there's a holiday coming up. We got the July 4th holiday this weekend. But again, we're giving you this time. So, use it wisely, get this documentation so that when you get your invitation, everything is ready for you.
Exactly. Good reminder. So the written test, what do you get asked the most often?
I get asked along, what is this written test? What's it all about? What am I going to be testing on? Can I study for all these things? So we're going to just be, kind of basic on some of the things, but the fire team test, right? And that's the proctored one.
Yes.
It takes about 120 minutes, an hour and a half, somewhere in there. So, and it's going to be looking at things like human relations, mathematics, reading, mechanical reasoning. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And then also the PSSA Part 1. Remember, there's 2 tests that you need to take.
Yes, fire team and PSSA Part 1.
And that, again, can be taken anywhere. That is not proctored.
Right. So that can be anywhere you have a computer. You can do it in the middle of the night. If you work night shift, all those kind of things, you can do it when it's convenient for you. Doesn't need to be scheduled.
Right. And it's basically a video, and you're going to just, how would you respond in this type of situation type thing?
Yep.
So, it's kind of one of those things too, where it's like, hey, if I want to get kind of familiar with the NTN testing platform, totally up to you. But if you wanted to take the PSA Part 1, that might be something to kind of introduce you to how National Testing Network does their testing.
Yeah, you can do them in different orders. So just want to clarify though, if you take it ahead of time, then there may be a cost to you for that. So waiting till ours opens up, when you get your link, that's how the cost is going to be covered from us. So if you do things ahead of time, then it will not be, but you can do them out of order. So like Mike said, that one's a little easier to get familiar, kind of going through it. It's not a scheduled proctored thing. You can do that one first. You don't have to do these all in the same day or in a certain order.
Okay.
So that's what's good.
So good point. Everything we're talking about was in our testing window.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, so now we're going to go through the different sections again, just to give you a high level overview, and there'll be some more information detailed on this in that email for me, so you can go over again. But Mike, you want to just touch on kind of what to expect?
Yeah, so first thing is the fire team, it's human relations, right? And it's going to be video based. The important thing to remember is don't be worried of, hey, I've never worked in EMS, or I haven't been a firefighter before. I don't know what the job's about. We're not going to be evaluating you, or NTN's not going to be evaluating on things that are based on a firefighter's reaction. Right. It's your reaction. you know.
It's an entry level job, like
Yeah.
we talked about a lot in the last presentation. You don't need that experience, but it's, fit for the type of role, right? And so thinking about your own background and how you would answer these questions, like it explains on here, it's a brief period because we want your instinctive answer.
Right.
It's not what you think you should answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, video based, multiple choices. So that's what you can kind of expect from this test.
Okay. So that's the bulk of it. Looks like that's an hour worth of the 2 hours on that fire team test.
Okay. And then mechanical reasoning. So this is one of the things where it's what firefighters do, right? When I think of mechanical reasoning, I think about, being a technical rescue technician.
Sure.
So we use a lot of mechanical advantages. It's important that we understand the concepts, how force multipliers, but we don't expect you to have that knowledge, right? It's just like, hey, do you have a general overall understanding of mechanical reasoning?
Mechanical aptitude.
Yeah, mechanical aptitude. There you go. So you're going to see that 30-minute test. It covers these principles, and then troubleshooting, system operations, and you'll see it when you're on the test, but that's what it's going to be doing. Mm-hmm.
All right. And then moving on to the math test. I know this one surprised me last year when we went over to this because I didn't always know that, fire was related to math on the job, right? And tell us about why is that important? What do we see here?
So it is important. So we have one of our firefighters there, actually one of our captains now, but working the pump panel, right? So hydraulics, there's calculating, there's math equations to get that done.
Sure.
Yeah. But also our EMS delivery too. So drawing up medications, building the correct amount, and it's just kind of one of those things. It's it's important for our firefighters to have basic mathematical skills. It's not algebraic.
Don't bring back high school nightmares.
Not right? that nothing we can't teach, but basically multiplication, division, subtraction. So if you wanted to prepare, those are some things that you should actually be doing because this is not a big part of the test. Okay, 14-minute test. And so you want to limit how many you miss because it could impact how you do overall in the testing process.
Exactly. That's a great point, Mike. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as far as how the scoring is done with that overall score and each component weighed in. And so that is true that you could technically do really well potentially on the test overall because you did great in a lot of sections, but you did really poorly on, say, one area, which might take you below that passing.
Right.
And so that is important, but again, there's not a study in preparedness for this. This is really just basic application. So you don't need to be overly stressed about it either. Again, it's just real life application of what you might use in this job.
Some important things, they're going to be presented aloud. So you got to, listen. And then there's a countdown timer. So again, you kind of see the information on the slide here. We're not here to read that off to you, but these are some things that you should be familiar with and what you're going to be exposed to.
Exactly. All right. And then moving on to the last component of the fire team, the reading part. So pretty short. Looks like it's only 6 minutes.
6 minutes, multiple choice reading questions, right? So again, reading a passage and finding out what word fits best with that passage. Not a whole lot, but as we go, we talked about again, it's still weighted. So you have to pass each portion.
Exactly. So. Okay. All right. So then moving on to that PSSA, the Public Safety Self-Assessment Part 1. So again, this is that 1-hour test that can be taken separately online at your own time and your convenience. You can take it before the fire team, after, but again, everything has to be done in that testing window. Okay. So same thing if you're transferring scores. So we just highlight that as well, that maybe you've already taken the fire team exam for another agency and you have that score, but you didn't take PSSA. You still got to make sure you do that part in ours. Right. So you got to either take both tests or transfer both or transfer one and take the other, but some combination of both is what we need in that window.
Right. And it is convenient, because NTN does send you reminders like, yeah, you've completed this portion, but you still need this one. Yeah. But again, you should have a plan. You should basically, I have this testing window. I'm going to take PSSA Part 1 here. I'm going to take the fire teams here because ultimately it's your responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And this PSSA part, what does it measure? Impulse control, integrity, social awareness. So basically as a firefighter, these are things that it's difficult, if not impossible to teach. It's who you are, right? So we need to know integrity is such a big part of what we do. We go into people's homes. They trust us automatically.
Personal.
They expect us to make the decisions based on their best interests. So this is just one way that we can evaluate that.
Yep. All right. So moving on to the scoring. So I think other than asking what's on the test, this is probably the second most asked question that Mike and I get a lot is the scoring. When am I going to get it? How's it work and everything? So, I'll do my best to explain it on here. It's not the easiest thing to explain. I'll say that right there. So, and that's because, as we said in the beginning, it's different for every department. And so with NTN, every department can kind of set that. It is a statistically validated test. So there are parameters, we can't just make up, how we're going to have scores in different levels, but there's some flexibility in those ranges. And that's what we were talking about, that maybe you didn't advance in another department's process, 6 months ago, but you may with us and vice versa. It's because there's different weighting in there. So try to explain this. So NTN will actually do the scoring, of your electronic test, of course, but they're not going to provide you your score. They will provide what's called performance feedback. Emma may touch on that more tonight as well. That's really just giving you kind of a guide. I believe they explain it as comparing you to how maybe other candidates were performing around that day or week of testing.
Okay.
And so that's one thing we want to stress people not to get hung up on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you don't want to be reading into that too much. It's not your score. And, you may still advance in our process and your performance feedback said maybe you were in the lower percentage, right?
Yeah.
So don't overthink that part.
I think that's probably a question
Yeah.
best for Emma, right? She's going to lock that out of the park. We just know that it's like, hey, you're going to see that. It's just kind of gee whiz. It doesn't apply to our process, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have our own parameters. So
Exactly. So what you're going to get from me from the City of Mesa HR office by July 25th is going to be your overall score. Okay. So remember, we just talked about all these test components. So it's going to be your overall score from all of that. Okay. And then communicating to you whether you made the eligible list or not. Okay. The eligible list is what's for that 1 year for those 2 upcoming academies and that consideration. And so to get on that, you have to pass overall, and you also have to pass within each component.
Okay.
So that's what you were talking about a few minutes ago, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense to me because you can have a good score, but we need to know that you're proficient in all those different categories.
Exactly. That's a great way to explain it. And so when you get that email from me, you'll get it one way or the other, whether you pass, or unfortunately, if you don't this time and you're going to try again in the future, it will explain that. What it's not going to do is give you your individual score for each portion.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get what you got in math and what on reading and be able to know where do I go from next time. System wise, with almost 900 candidates, it's just not possible to do that. We're not trying to hide anything or make it difficult. It's just within the parameters with that volume, it's just not possible. So we give you what we can and giving you your overall score and explaining, if you pass both to make it, and hope that is helpful.
All right.
Okay. So if you do advance in that process, again, by getting that overall passing in each component, then on that same day, July 25th, is when you will also get your instructions for the next part in the process. We're going to talk more tonight after the end-to-end presentation, the oral board interviews in our brand new online process for this year.
Okay.
So you'll get all of that on July 25th.
All right. So,
okay. So
it's time for Emma. We got Emma. Let's get Emma queued up.
Yep, I think we're getting that ready. And so a couple things we can highlight while we're waiting for that then. The NTN has customer support Monday through Friday. There's great support via chat as well as their phone number. So that's an opportunity to reach them. So anytime throughout the process you have technical difficulties, if you're having problem getting scheduled, any of that kind of stuff is when you would want to reach out to them. So take advantage of that opportunity. And I'm going to close this down while we wait to switch it over.
Okay. Also, the Monday through Friday. So Monday through Friday. Emma, are we ready to go? Okay.
Yep, she's getting ready. Yeah, Monday through Friday. That is a good reminder, Mike. I believe in the past they had some different hours, so we have updated that. You can still test though on the weekends.
Okay.
So don't think that it's Monday through Friday tech support. You can do the test on the weekend. There are scheduling. If you have technical issues, then you would have to wait till Monday. But our testing process, I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I know it closes on a weekday.
Okay.
So you would be able to follow up on that business Monday to get some help.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Emma, we're going to turn it over to you. And we got volume. You guys got volume?
That's for us. Yeah.
Okay.
think she has to scroll down to the other presenters because she's not in the queue.
Oh, okay. We'll just working through this here real quick. You're
Just a
getting
moment.
Emma
Thanks
up.
for your patience. If you have more questions in the meantime, keep them coming in the chat, please.
Yeah. Do we have any questions out there right now, team? Okay. We are
Perfect.
working.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh, yes. I think we can hear you, Emma.
Awesome. Yeah, I just had to be allowed to speak. So hello, thank you for having me. I hope I can provide some helpful information for your guys' process today.
Yeah, and then I think if you can share your screen, then it should pop up to allow us to give you access. Here it comes.
Perfect. I think I did. Does that look right to you guys? Everybody can see my screen okay? Believe so. All right, so thank you so much for choosing NTN. We're really excited to host your guys' testing process, and it's really, really simple. I think that the amount of information that you guys will be ingesting will make more sense once you see a little bit more about our website. So let me get you started here. So your invitation is going to come from a do not reply email. It's just going to say do not reply like it would say anybody else's name. It'll be do not reply at nationaltestingnetwork.com. So if on the 6th you wake up and you're feeling unsure, go ahead and just type this into your email search box. You'll be able to find it. Sometimes it will go to the spam folder, so just be aware of that. Make sure that you're checking any and all folders, and just like Nicole said, you need to use the same email address that you used for your application. So if at any point you're unsure, I would just go ahead and reach out, make sure that that email address is the same, because that's what the NTN score will be tied to as well. So you're going to want to make sure that's exactly the same. And then in the email that you receive, there will be a blue link. It's going to look like this. This is literally a screenshot of your invitation email. So this blue link right here, where it says National Testing Network, Mesa Fire and Medical, Firefighter Recruit, that's going to be your link to the test. That's how you're going to get to the website. Whether you have already taken the exam or you're brand new to NTN, that'll be the link that you click. So if you're brand new, you'll be brought to register and schedule your exam. If you've already had an NTN score that's valid, you can click on this and you'll be brought to a screen to log in and transfer the score. Either way, this is your key to the test. So you're going to want to keep a hold of that link until you get it scheduled. So if you are actually scheduling the exam, you just click that link, it'll bring you right to the page, and then you're going to choose your location and hit continue. So the first step of the process is actually scheduling it, right? So we have over 175 test sites, and just like Nicole said, we do have 3 in Arizona. So we have 1 in Phoenix, that's our big one. Lots of testing availability there, so you shouldn't be worried if you're in that area. You're pretty much set if you'd like to take it physically. We also have 1 in Tucson and Flagstaff. So if you're closer to those locations, that might be a good option, right? You don't have to worry about those technical requirements, and you can kind of just show up with a full stomach ready to test. But we also offer virtual testing. And obviously, if you're not in those areas, or even if you're out of state, that's a really great option for you. You can test at home from the comfort of your own bedroom, living room, whatever is most convenient for you. So choosing the location, one of the first options you'll see is that virtual testing option. So the virtual testing option, you'll need to make sure that you read those technical requirements really, really carefully. It's very specific, and obviously we have testing locations in Arizona, so don't hesitate to go to one of those if you feel you aren't meeting them. On that technical requirements page, there is going to be a test link, so you can test out your system to make sure it works. You know, test your Wi-Fi, your computer speed, make sure that the camera that you're actually going to be using for the test works. So all of that is on the requirements page. I heavily suggest checking that out before you actually sign up for virtual testing. I know it's convenient, but you know, maybe you only have a tablet at home. We need to make sure it's on an actual computer. So that's a good place to visit. And then that is what the actual virtual testing option looks like when you're going to schedule. So luckily, virtual testing in Arizona, they're right next to each other. So your 2 options are kind of laid out right there. This is what our scheduling looks like for Washington, D.C., but it'll look exactly the same for Arizona. So you'll have those addresses looked up. So maybe you have a Google Maps tab open and you're like trying to see which one is closest to you. That's a good idea as well. So you'll choose a date and time that works for you. And I would, suggest if you have a busy schedule or if you have work, definitely check your calendar, because if you schedule within 7 days, we aren't able to change that testing time. So definitely make sure you're going to be available for the entire, I would say 2 hours. The test is a little bit less than that, but give a little bit of wiggle room just in case. So the gray slots are open and the red slots are full, and it just says full. So if you're colorblind or you maybe aren't sure, it'll just say full, and it'll be pretty clear once you get in there. I have a screenshot of what that looks like coming up next. So just like Mesa had already clarified, we add testing slots as needed, as availability becomes less and less optimal. So if you don't see something, maybe check back the next day and you'll find something that might work a little bit better for you. Obviously, you're going to want to register as soon as possible, though. So don't wait too long. Don't check in and say, well, I'm not really feeling it. Definitely, prioritize this. Make sure you find a time that works for you, but also choose it early. So this is what the actual scheduler looks like. So you'll notice that all of the full ones are in red, and it also says full. Those are slots that we do not have available anymore, but all of the gray ones listed there, we do have available. Keep in mind that these are all in Pacific Standard Time. So if you're scheduling for a virtual test, only the virtual exams are in Pacific Standard Time. If you're scheduling a virtual exam, understand that that is going to be 1 hour behind you. We are in Washington State, which is in Pacific Standard Time. It is currently 6:36 p.m. instead of 7:36. So just keep that in mind when you're scheduling for virtual. Exam confirmation will happen. It'll make it really, really clear. You do actually have to hit the continue button once you've got everything on the page. You'll have your departments listed. You'll have your test time listed. And once that looks all okay to you, then you can hit the continue button. So this is what it'll look like. You're almost done. You're almost 100% done. And then you just have to hit continue to actually schedule your exam. So if you have an existing account, you can log in at that page. If you don't, you'll be pushed to create an NTN account. And it's super basic information, anything that you would normally sign up for. Do keep in mind you'll need your social security number, so have that handy if you don't have it memorized, but the rest of the information is very, very basic. This is that page, so log in over on the right-hand side if you're a pre-existing, and then you can create a new one right there with that blue button. And if your email address that you have for NTN is different than the one that you signed up and applied for Mesa with, you can change your NTN email address on this page as well. So if you see down at the bottom, already have NTN, go ahead and change it there. So this is what that account creation page looks like. Like I said, really basic information, first name, last name, your current address, and your social security number. So this is what the very last page looks like before you actually complete and schedule your exam. The total cost should be exited out at this point. So if you noticed it said 55 on the other page, when you come to this page, you'll notice that that has been removed at the exam discount, and then it says $0. So that's what your page will look like. So if it looks like it's about to charge you, don't worry. Once you get to that final page, it'll exit out. And then this is the actual page that means you have completed it. You have scheduled testing, it says order complete, and I really like to keep records of stuff once I buy it. So go ahead and print that page just to make sure, remind yourself that you actually completed that section. If you don't see this screen, you haven't completed the process. So a lot of candidates make the mistake of trying to sign up on their phone, and you'll notice that if you try to sign up on your phone, you'll hit continue, but you won't get to this page. So our website is not super mobile friendly. You'll want to do this on your actual computer. And if you're doing virtual testing, should be easy enough. If you're doing physical testing because you don't have a computer at home, go ahead and just head to a library. This process really only takes about 5 minutes. All right, and then the PSSA, I know that there might be some questions about the PSSA, so I'm more than happy to answer them more in depth in just a second, but only part 1 is completed. You're gonna see requests to complete the second one. Feel free to just ignore those. There will be marketing emails asking you to complete those sections as well, but you're completely free to just opt out of those. The first part is the only part that you need to complete. Once you start the PSSA, you can't stop it. So maybe wait until you're done with work for the day, your responsibilities are put away, your kids are happy, sit down and take the exam in one session. If you have any issues during that session, your computer shuts off, anything, contact support right away. Let them know what happened, and we'll try to get in the process of restarting it for you. So that only is for part 1. If you maybe just wanted to attempt part 2 and you have some issues, feel free to call, but that is not going to hurt your Mesa application, so don't worry too much about that. Preference points, the documents, like we said, are going to be uploaded through your NTN account. There's going to be a separate page, literally titled Documents, and it will go through very specifically, this is how you upload it, this is what we're looking for. So you can upload just about anything in there, but keep in mind, Mesa is looking for really specific information, so not everything will be accepted, and it will be time stamped at the most recent time you updated it. So let's say you updated something, you know, on the 12th. That's perfectly fine. That's when it's required. If you update something the day after the testing closes, they will see the most recent timestamp. So you'll want to make sure you have everything all settled by the actual closing date. The file must be a PDF. I know that Adobe can transfer it to PDF if necessary, but that probably shouldn't be too hard for you to find on the internet somewhere. We're also more than happy to help if you want to give our support team a call. I know that we're used to supporting candidates through like transferring file types and stuff like that. All right, tips for success. I would say always arrive 30 minutes early. For virtual testing, that's going to be a really exact number. 30 minutes before the test time is your check-in time. That'll be gone over in the actual virtual testing steps, but even physical locations, show up 30 minutes early. Just be ready to check in, maybe, you know, center yourself a little bit before the exam. And like I said, virtual testing is in Pacific time zones. So like me, I'm not super good with math. I would just Google what time is my time in Pacific time and just, you know, connect that to your memory. And then you'll always have to bring your ID, even for virtual testing. So for virtual testing, you're going to be asked to show your ID to the webcam. So don't think that you don't have to have that, even though you're testing in your own home. That's actually the only material you should be bringing to any of our tests. You're not going to need a calculator for that math test. You're not going to need pencils. You're not going to need note paper. Everything is going to be provided by us, even if you're virtually testing. So that ID is really the only thing that you're going to need. So that is kind of the end of my presentation. I know that you guys might have some questions about the PSSA, about the scoring, about the written exam. I'm more than happy to answer pretty much any of those. I've worked here for about 4 years, so I have seen pretty much all of the questions. So happy to help with anything anyone's wondering at this point.
Do we have any questions for her? Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Emma. We really appreciate your time and joining us tonight. If you want to hang out for just a couple minutes, we'll see if any other questions do come in the chat for you and we can handle those. But otherwise, that was a lot of great information. I think the only thing that I want to clarify, one thing that you touched on as far as the timing related to the Pacific time and the NTN scheduling, because it's based out of Washington State Pacific time. So we actually are on the same time of that right now. So Arizona's confusing here. I'm still not used to it. I moved here 9 years ago from New Jersey, but it's still a little confusing for me because we don't do the daylight saving. So in the winter months, then we are an hour ahead of that Pacific. Okay, yes, and we do have a question in a second. So we are on the same time though right now. So okay. It is the same time. It's about 6:40 right now Arizona time, same as it is in California or Washington State. So just something to clarify on there. But that was a good suggestion, like you had anyway, Emma, and covering, you know, maybe you're testing from another time zone altogether and you're out of Arizona State, to just look up what time it is and make sure you are confirming the time you think you're going to be there. Be early, like she said. Virtual or in person, the same strategy applies. So, but thank you so much. And we did get one question. And so what exactly is the PSSA, and is there any practice for it?
Yeah, so I don't know if Emma's here, and it might be a little difficult to get her back on live, but I can tell you that, so the PSSA is 2 parts, remember? PSSA part 1 and PSSA part 2. So we can tell you about PSSA part 1, and we know that's, you know, basically measures you on impulse control, integrity, social awareness, right? And so those are the things. But PSSA part 2, I can't even recall because we don't test that. So
is that related to? I feel like it's more for law enforcement, if I'm remembering correct.
Yeah, Nicole, that's correct. It's for law enforcement and corrections mostly. If you'd like to take it, you can, just to see, but it basically measures use of force and community bias. So it's not something that firefighters should be doing, so we don't really require it.
Okay. Makes sense. So more applicable to that type of career. So yeah, Great question. And it looks like we got another question separate from the NTN about how many candidates we're looking to hire. I think you said about up to 50 at least?
Yeah, at least 50. So we've so this is already something that City Council and the fire chiefs already talked about, and it was 25 per academy. So that's the number that we're advertising right now.
Okay, great. Well,
Okay.
thank you for those great questions. Thank you so much, Emma, for taking time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it. I'm sure the candidates do as well.
Thank you, Emma.
And we appreciate that. And like you mentioned, the candidate support is out there. Contact as soon as you have any issues or questions, scheduling, any of those kind of things during our testing window. NTN support is there.
Okay.
All right, so we will move on. Mike and I will take back over onto the next step in our process, the oral board.
Yeah, so oral board, and this is a traditional term that we use, so we're going to be talking, you see oral board there.
Yes.
It's actually a one-way recorded interview we're going to talk about in a moment, but let's just talk about the interview itself, okay? So we're only going to do one round of interviews. We know different departments do different things, so it's only one round. Next is it's 5 to 7 questions is what we're looking at right now. Could be multi-part questions, kind of the why do you want to be a firefighter and why as an example, right? So that would be a 2-part question. So be prepared for that. Also, as we know, a lot of you are already working on your interview skills with your mentors in your different groups, but this is some things that will be helpful for you. Each question, you're going to have 5 minutes of preview time. From that 5 minutes, it's going to take you to your response, and that response is going to be limited to a 3-minute answer. 5-minute preview, 3-minute answer, and that's how you should be preparing right now.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Mike. We're going to talk about some more of the differences with this new process this year, with the interviews being in this online platform and being a recorded thing. Candidates may be used to, they've tested with us before or other agencies where you come in person, you get all the questions, say there's 5 of them, and I get to preview them and make my notes for, 20 or 30 minutes. And then I go on my interview and I answer all of them one after another. So that's going to take some adjustment because this is different, meaning that we're going to have a testing window to be able to do this, and you don't have to do it all at once. It's going to be question by question, just like you said. Mm-hmm. But think of it this way, not to get stressed over it. You're still going to get the same concept of preview, like you said, and answer your question. So 5 minutes to preview and a few minutes to answer the question. So it's just broken down, more structured, but really the same amount of time overall. If you think about it, at 5 minutes preview per question, times that, it's about the same.
And we're still going to allow you to take notes.
Of course.
So you'll get the preview time. You can take your notes to help you answer.
Your answer.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of similarities from traditional processes. But again, we're here just to kind of get the information out so you can start preparing. So we covered that already. The testing window, July 25th through the 31st. They're recorded interviews, so they're not proctored. Again, so you got the invitation. It's up to you to click the link and go ahead and prepare for that.
And when it's convenient for you. So that's about a week. So plenty of time for you to be able to fit that in. And again, not wait to the last minute, just like we've been talking about, but does give that flexibility to do. And with it being online, again, not having to come in person. So we're trying to make our reach, nationwide and get more candidates, that diversity, inclusivity. And this is another way that we have adapted to doing that.
Right. And again, big goal of ours today and through our testing process is giving you the opportunity to prepare. And again, I talk transparent, so you know what to expect. So this is one of them. The times, possible number of questions, multi-part, but then also this is your time to start practicing too. Because there's going to be, when we talk about Spark Hire, there'll be some opportunity to practice some responses to the questions, but you can already start now. So again, working with your cell phone, if that's what you're planning to use, or a laptop, looking at lighting, right? Also, how you sound through your device. So these are things you can already start doing now.
Right. And what we have on our next slide, Mike will talk a little bit about our Sharpen Your Interview Skills documentation. This is something that we have provided in the past. So there's been a little bit of adaptation because it's a new online process, but most of the content's still the same. It's really the same process, just, conveying your answer in a different way, but it's going to be the same kind of questions, the same type of responses that we're looking for, the content. So the way you prepare will be similar. You want to talk about? It's similar.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to use this document. And one thing I'm going to start out with is we're interviewing hundreds of candidates. Okay. And so if you've never been part of a firefighter interview, it is different, right? So we want you to have depth in your answer. And of course, this is just a document that's going to help you kind of prepare, but it's not the only things. There's a lot of different methods. There's a lot of different styles, and we're not telling you this is the only way to do it. Whatever works for you. What we're telling you is this is a document available to you.
People might be wondering, Mike, because this is really small on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, where do I find this amazing document, right?
Yeah. So just know that, again, this is just an example. We're not going to go line by line on this document. It's going to be on our fire recruitment page, and it's also going to be sent to you when you get the invitation.
Exactly. So both places, but the reason we're putting it on the recruitment page this week is, again, to give you more time to prepare.
Right.
So again, you have the written test first. Obviously, you have to get through that and hopefully pass and make the list, but there's no reason to wait necessarily to find that out. You can start practicing a little bit each week, leading up to this, because you don't need to wait for that invitation. These are general tips. And so we're going to put that on the page and then, yes, reattach it to the invitation if you advance to that interview.
One thing, because some of you might have seen this before if you tested with us, but we've actually added more content. In the recruitment office, I get a lot of questions about where do I find this? How do I find that? I want to learn more about the city, more about the department, benefits, what have you. And what we did is we just created links in that document so you can easily find that stuff. It applies to you. Again, we're not telling you this is how to do it. These are just suggestions, and we're providing you with that information. So utilize your resources,
Exactly. Great tips.
Okay.
All right. And then one of the things that I wanted to go over, I'm going to talk some more about the details of this one-way interview. Again, practicing that you don't have to even use your phone or anything. I would practice talking to yourself in front of the mirror, because what this one-way interview is, it's very different than what you may be used to in an online Teams meeting like we're in now for this, a Zoom platform type of thing where there's somebody on the other side. Yeah. And so when you're not used to that initially, you're thinking, wow, I'm talking to myself. But hey, if I practice for a couple weeks, in front of a mirror, in front of a wall, and I'm just talking to myself, it's kind of the same thing,
right?
Just not on the screen, right?
That's in reps. And here's another thing to you for your preparation is that on our end, we're actually trying to make it as similar as possible as we traditionally do it. So we're going to receive your recorded interviews. There's going to be a 3-person panel. If you've ever done it before, that's going to be the same. They're going to grade you. They're going to discuss things after you're done with your interview, watching it together. So on our end, the only thing that's going to be different is it's going to be a recording instead of you there live, but we're handling everything the same on how we evaluate you.
That's a great breakdown.
And what we're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one-way interview. That's what it's called. Okay, so just like I explained a second ago, it's not going to be interactive. So, again, getting that comfortableness, you're actually get an opportunity to practice it in the platform, but same thing, being offline in front of a mirror would give you the same type of experience. You're just talking to yourself and practicing a response. There are a ton of resources out there. So just like Emma highlighted with NTN on their website, there's a lot of links and resources. Spark Hire, this platform for these online interviews, same type of thing. So in the interest of time tonight, we're not actually going to go to the website, but again, this will be posted for candidates. They can go to what's called Spark Hire Bootcamp. Spark Hire Bootcamp.
So here's a thing. If you're on your phone or you have your phone on your laptop, take a screenshot right now so you have that information. Again, it'll be linked with your invitation, but this is something you have access to right now. So you can get familiar with the platform. It has do's and don'ts, helpful hints, preparation. So, again, use this time, start preparing now, utilize your resources, and this is just one of them. So take advantage of that.
Most of them are really short, so it's not like a ton of time to go through, but I think it's worth it to poke through and see what things if you haven't used this before.
Okay. One thing that did actually stand out that I want to get ahead of is on the candidate bootcamp, it asks you to send your employer a thank you letter, reach out to them. Where, like I said, we have hundreds of candidates. Please don't do that. You won't be able to get in touch with anybody. You won't be able to get in touch with anybody. We know you're participating because you're excited about pursuing the career of a firefighter. So thank you for that.
Yes. All right. So it can be completed with any device. So it's actually very user friendly. You don't even need to log in or make an account. So it can be any device that is internet access. Obviously, you need a microphone and a camera. Okay, so laptop, your iPad, your smartphone, any of those kind of things work. Very easy. However, if you do have any issues, any kind of hardship where you don't have access to something like that, having difficulty, or you have a disability that might need a reasonable accommodation, we'll want you to reach out through that accommodation process, just like we talked about for the written. We'll provide instructions on that in your invitation and when you would need to reach out to us to talk about and see what options we might have for you there.
Okay.
Also, just like the written, there is no cost to you. So Spark Hire interview platform, there's nothing that you would need to pay out of pocket to do that part of the interview process. And then again, you will also receive 2 emails on or about July 25th is when you will get those emails for this part of the process. So again, very similar, just like the written, you'll get 2. The first one will be a very detailed one, again, from me at City of Mesa, which will cover all of this in much more detail.
Okay.
So this is really high level, right,
Yes.
Mike? I mean, there's only so much we can cover in about an hour, but same parameters as the last one. We want you to take your time and please read that carefully before you actually move on to do your interview. A lot of good tips are in there. There'll be more links again to the candidate boot camp, maybe if you hadn't had a chance to do that by then. But definitely, we want people to be successful.
Mhm.
We don't want somebody out of the process because they didn't read something and did something by mistake, not
Right.
intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a great thing. So make sure you're reading that first. And then the second email will be from Spark Hire. Again, another do not reply address that will just simply have the link. And that's how you get into your interview. Again, unique to you, can't be forwarded or used by someone else. Okay. So once you get into the interview platform, what's that going to be like? So similar to the written test, we want to make sure you are who you say you are. So you will have to present that government issued photo identification. So we talked a little bit about that in our last Facebook session. Doesn't have to be the driver's license because again, that's not required until a time of hire, but government issued. So whether that's a passport, a non-driver ID, if you don't have a driver's license, but government issued, can't be like the Costco or school ID type
Okay.
thing.
Mhm.
So you'll need to hold that up in view of the camera so that we can confirm that it reasonably matches your photo and your name, of course. And then we'll actually ask the candidates. This is another way we're going to check to make sure you're reading my really important emails. We will actually ask you to state that you have read the instructions sent. And that's important. It's just another reminder. And if you haven't, it's okay. That's your chance to pause and go back and read it then. So there's no time limit to that question. You'll be able to take your time and make sure you've done that. Following that, or I'm sorry, actually have these backwards, I apologize. Before you even start that, there'll be an opportunity for you to test your system. So of course, just like tonight, and things kind of happen on there, we want to make sure your camera's working, that you can hear and that it sounds okay, your bandwidth for your internet is good. It will test your system to make sure all of that's good to go.
Okay.
Then it will actually go in there. It actually gives you a practice opportunity.
Uh-huh.
So is that something you encourage people to do?
I take advantage of all opportunities,
Opportunity.
especially with something new.
Yes. So that's the great thing. So like I was saying, you could practice offline for weeks ahead in front of a mirror, talk to yourself, but on this, you'll actually get the opportunity to see how it works in
Yeah.
the system. Get familiar with how the timer counts down, how the question reads to you on the screen, and recording yourself and playing it back. And I would do it a few times.
Yeah,
Take
for
advantage,
sure,
like you
for sure.
said. Get familiar, work your kinks out, and then you enter into your interview. And then that first question will be verifying your ID.
So a couple highlights here. So 24/7 tech support too. So you have any difficulties, that's available to you.
Very, very good to have that. And the key is to let them know right away. So
Uh-huh.
if you have an issue, definitely reach out right away so that they can assist you if there is some Wi-Fi or some other connectivity type of thing to do that.
Okay. And then also, I think we touched on some of these things. Doesn't need to be completed in one setting.
Nope.
So you can actually break it up. We're not suggesting anything here to you, but if during your practice and you're like, hey, I do better when I knock it all out at one session. I'm going to add those 5 to 7 questions on this time. I'm going to knock it out. Or I prefer to have a break after a couple questions. I can do one on Monday, do a couple on Tuesday, leave myself plenty of time so I'm not doing it at the last minute. And just figure out what works for you.
Exactly. Each candidate is different and it gives you that opportunity. So again, either whether you do it all in one sitting or spread it out over days like Mike just described, in either case, it's question by question.
Okay.
So you won't get to see the next one until you've completed and submitted one. And so that's how it will work as far as that preview time. Spark Hire actually refers to it as think time, but same concept. It's time to see the question, have 5 minutes to make those notes and be able to gather your thoughts. So
Mhm.
take advantage of that. It'll have a timer counting down. I encourage you to take the whole 5 minutes, go over your notes and prepare yourself. And then it will come on the screen and count down to begin your recording.
Okay.
So you're only going to get one take though.
That's important. I don't think we mentioned that
Yeah.
yet. So here's the thing, and Spark Hire, a lot of departments use those, but and you can cater around what your needs are. For Mesa, it's one take.
Yes.
So you only get one shot.
It's basically, so just like in real life,
In real life.
kind of like tonight,
Mhm.
we have a little kinks on there, but
Yeah.
we get through it. And so don't worry, you don't have to sound like you're perfect on there. Focus on your content and get through it knowing that you can't restart it, because just like you mentioned, we're trying to make this as similar to the in-person process as possible. When you interview in person, you're not hitting restart and going back. And so we're doing one take on there. So just make sure you breathe, you hit start for your preview, you have your 5 minutes, and be ready to go in and submit your answer.
Okay.
Okay. And it actually also gives you the opportunity to play it back while there's not an opportunity to redo it. We still encourage you to do the playback to make sure it captured it correctly.
Okay.
If there was any technical glitch or something there, that's where we'd want you to contact that technical support right away.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. Another thing important to know, cannot skip any questions.
Yeah.
So that would be disqualifying, if you skipped a question. It's a process, so it's not something you can accidentally do. It'd be, there's checks and balances, but for whatever reason, something happens, there's technical support. You can reach out and talk to them. But just know, only one take and you can't skip any questions.
Yes, we want everybody to be remaining through the process, but don't do that because it will result in a disqualification if you choose that option.
Okay.
And then after the window closes, so again, the 31st, so it was the 25th to the 31st, roughly?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I got it right here.
Time, yes. And
Okay.
so through the 31st, so once that's closed, okay, then all the interviews that will be closed, you can't take any late ones, of course. We're really hard on the deadlines due to the volume. Then Mesa Fire is going to review them based on department need over the next couple weeks. Okay. So again, just like in person when we had interviews over a few weeks with the panel like you described, it will be the same thing. They'll be convening together the panels of 3, watching them in those groups as if you were there in person. It's just a recording.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
everyone, after that period is over, around August 24th is when you'll all get an email from me letting you know your status. Okay. Whether you're going to be advancing on to the intern, which we'll talk about in a second, or if you're not going to be quite advancing that yet, but you're going to stay on the list, you'll know what your status is by that date.
I'll tell you what, we're really trying to improve this process, and this is one of the ways we're doing it, is giving you these dates, because a lot of people are like, where are we at? I haven't heard anything. Well, again, later on in the process, you can always refer back to this live event and kind of scroll through it until you find that slide that you're looking for, and you'll find those dates here.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So keep questions coming in the chat. Anything. I know this is a brand new process. It might seem overwhelming. It's something that we have been working towards implementing for the last several months. So it was overwhelming for us too. So no question is silly. Please keep them coming. And again, there'll be lots more information in the interview or invitation that comes as well to read through. But we are excited for this new process, mainly just to get more people involved, right?
For sure.
Definitely important to have that. All right. And I think we have another question actually coming in. We'll cover one before we move on to the intern orientation in just a second here. All right. Where is the best place to go to get help with the interview? That is a good question. Mike, you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so there's some resources out there available to you. We covered this in our last presentation, but there are affinity groups out there, and you can also find them on our recruitment page. But let me see, United Black Firefighters is one, Fire Vets, Valley Women's, Emerald Society, and those are groups that are not, inclusive. So you don't have to be a vet, or don't have to be a woman to go to Valley Women's. So they accept everybody. You can find help there. You can also reference the links that we're providing.
Yeah.
Right. So use that information that we're providing to you. If you know a firefighter, most of us are willing to help you. We've been in your shoes, and you can reach out to them. So those are some resources.
Yeah, and definitely the interview tips document that we referenced on there, that will be posted in the next day or so, might even already be on there on the Mesa Fire recruitment page. I would look at that. That has links to some of the areas that you were just talking about, and just those general tips about, answering all parts of the question, being professional, making sure you're speaking clearly, as if they're in front of you.
Right.
Treat it the same way. That's the best advice, is just because it's on the computer screen, treat it the same way, because they're going to watch you in person the same way.
But those groups, like I talked about, we hire a lot from them because they come prepared, and those are the things that they work on you with. They work on interview skills. They understand that that's a big hurdle for a lot of people to get over. So good input on that. And then also your physical conditioning, community service. So like I said, I can't recommend them enough. But that's what we got. That's what we're trying to cover today. So hopefully you got some helpful information. If by chance, you want something a little bit more, you can always contact me. My information's on the website. I can't tell you the questions and walk you through the process because, I'm involved here, of course. But for any kind of clarification, please reach out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for that question. We will move on to our last segment then, which is the intern orientation.
So the intern orientation, these are for people that have successfully passed the written.
Yep.
And they've also passed their interview.
Yep.
And this is our last step. So the intern orientation is the last step before job offers. So tell you a little bit about that. After the interviews, you'll get an email by August 24th. So we're looking at.
So you'll know one way or the other if you're going to be advancing to the stage. Yes.
All right. And then we've kind of changed some things. Okay. So in the past, this has been optional.
Highly suggested, but optional.
It was high. Yeah. Now it is mandatory. And really, this was a high-level decision because we've talked about running a fair process, right? And the fairest we thought was to have everybody show up to go through the intern orientation. But we've made some changes as well.
Yeah, kind of tailoring it to make it, easier for candidates, right? And so as far as the dates of doing that, it is still going to be a multi-day thing, but it's going to be compressed into a single weekend.
Okay.
So those of you who may have been invited or participated in the past may have remembered doing a combination like 2 Saturdays in a row or 2 Sundays, something like that. And it was spread out. It was a little bit more challenging for out-of-state people. We've condensed it, so now it's going to be a back-to-back. So a full weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday.
Okay.
So what we have listed here that we'll cover in a second, it's 3 sets of weekends there in September into early October, and you would be selecting one of those. So not mixing and matching days.
Yeah. And here's another thing, goes back to planning early. If you've gotten to this part in this point in the process and you're out of state and, again, you got to book flights and all that, you got to reach out to us early and start making those arrangements. Now, remember, this is the only time we require you to actually be here in person, right? So the demand on you is a little bit less, but at the same time, it is mandatory. You have to be here. If you're coming from out of state or you need accommodations, please reach out to us.
So by reaching out, Mike, means scheduling early. Yeah. So it's first come, first serve. So everyone will have the same opportunity. And so when we say these email dates, you want to be checking regularly. One of the things that we're going to be implementing with this process, also brand new, is some text messaging reminders. So we're excited to deploy that. And so it'll be simple text messages, just letting you know, Mesa Fire has sent you an important email, related to the process, something really short like that, that will cue you to go check your email and do this. Okay. I wouldn't rely on that. I mean, it is new and hopefully works smoothly, but I would say take ownership. We say that throughout the process. Take ownership for yourself. Check your email regularly. So these dates are always approximate, but you want to be checking so that you can get on there. If you know that, hey, I can only do that one particular weekend on here, you want to log on as soon as I send that email to make sure you can pick the weekend. Once the slots are full, only the other ones are remaining.
And that's why we're sharing these dates with you now, like being, kind of getting ahead of that so you can prepare. Okay, so a lot of people ask, well, what is intern all about, intern orientation? Basically, the easiest way to explain it is, so you've given your interview and you've told us who you are. The intern orientation is the ability for you to show us who you are. And what are we looking at? We're how you work with others. We talk about team, or how you work as a team. How do you take instructions? Are you afraid to ask questions? All these things we're evaluating basically based on your interview, right? So That's what we're going to be doing to the intern orientation. You don't have to have any firefighter experience. We're not going to be having you pull hose, and things like that. So it's really just evaluating how you are, how you interact with others, and are you who you say you are in your interview?
And probably more important than ever, Mike, stressing that this is the in-person, the final part of the selection process, because this is when we're going to see you in person. We have the online written exam, which was new last year. Now it's our second year. And this year now we also have the online interview.
Yeah.
So we're not actually seeing any of you in person until this intern orientation. So all the more reason to really, show us who you are, as Mike just explained, in person, what that entails. One other thing to touch on real quick as well, back to the mandatory and kind of the thought process that, our fire chief went into, and thinking that is back to that level playing field, right? And making it fair for everyone. And because it is so key in the selection, in looking at it, that's why it's important to be there, and it's going to be required to be there for both days.
Mhm.
So some candidates may remember in the past, if you couldn't come for, the second day, but you could do the first, or vice versa, that was allowed because it was optional. But now that it being mandatory to keep it consistent and be able to evaluate everyone the same, it is required to be considered. If you can't make it, let's say, you're going on a fabulous European vacation over these 3 weeks, I'd like to trade places with you. Don't reschedule your life. Like, you still go ahead and do that. This list is for a year.
Right.
So we're
Good
going to
point.
have intern orientation again in the spring, right? For the August 2024 Academy. You'll remain on the list. Just communicate with us. Make sure you're not a, no call, no show kind of thing, but communicate, stick it out. Maybe the dates work for you in the spring better.
Right.
Okay.
And I also want to just kind of point out and highlight that, we're telling you that there's other opportunities, January, August Academy, but it's always based on department need, right? So we got to get that little bit of that wiggle room. But again, we want to give you time to prepare too. So just want to disclose all that information.
Exactly.
So going back to intern orientation, kind of wrapping things up with that, basically we're going to give you how it's like in the fire academy, working together as a team, stuff like that, staying away from all the, expert knowledge as far as being an EMT or a firefighter. We know you don't have that knowledge yet, or might not have it. It's going to be hosted at our fire training academy. Our training division actually puts this on for us. So it'll be hosted over there. It'll be a full work day. So that means you'll be responsible for your own meals, right? Bringing stuff to keep you hydrated, keep you fueled, which also kind of brings in what's important is planning ahead. So getting yourself in the proper physical conditioning, because you will be active. It will be outside.
Sure.
It could be, so it's all depending when it takes place, but preparing that way. And then also, again, following a good workout program, nutrition, hydration, because this is going to just allow you to perform better and also recover better, because it's 2 consecutive days. You don't have that week to recover like you did last time.
Exactly. Great point.
Okay.
All right. So questions. I think we did receive a question that came through. So how do I get placed on the text message list? So great question. So I covered that a little bit in the last Facebook session. That's all tied to your governmentjobs.com profile when you applied. So it should have prompted you, if it was your first time going through there, towards the end of the application, after you did, your contact info, your work history, and all of that stuff, to opt in and enter a phone number. However, if you didn't, you can still go back into your account, so governmentjobs.com, and log in with your same credentials, and then you would go into your account profile settings, and there is an option there for your communication preferences. So email, of course, we talked about that, definitely should remain on. If you check no to emails, you're not going to get anything. I don't think you'll be able to succeed in the process if you don't do that. So make sure that is, and then the text being optional as a reminder. We do encourage it. Same thing, you would choose yes, opt in, and put your phone number in there. So as long as you update that, then you will get them.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
great tool we have out there. Yeah, and I think that kind of wraps us up then.
Yeah, we're good. So thank you all for joining us. Hopefully this information was beneficial for you. We actually put a lot of thought into creating this for you, because we want you to be successful, and we just want you to know that what to expect during our process. So hopefully you got that.
Yes, definitely. And this is being recorded just like the last one was. So it will be posted probably sometime tomorrow on that recruitment page. So if you were not able to join us live tonight, we hope you'll be able to watch the recording. And if you were here tonight and there was parts where you're like, I need to come back to that, there was a lot of good content, please, by all means, go back and watch it as many times as you need. But most importantly, remember to read those lengthy, important emails,
Yes.
which will have a lot more details to be successful. That's written for your benefit, by all means. So
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us again tonight. We really appreciate your time. If there are more questions coming in the chat and it gets cut off quite there, don't worry. If we miss you, they can always reach you, right?
They can reach you. Like I said, my information is on the recruitment page. My job is to be here for you. So, just like I said, review the information. There's information on the recruitment page. Of course, the PowerPoints. If you need clarification, I have no problem clarifying that. Again, thank you for joining us. Good luck in the process, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.